Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about configurations in the Matrix Configurator software. Configurations are the result of combining inputs with actions. If you're not familiar with inputs and actions and how they work, you can watch videos on both by selecting Help, How-To Videos. When the Matrix software is loaded and devices are detected, a default configuration is automatically loaded into the software. We can see the default configuration by clicking on various inputs on the input devices that were detected. As you can see, clicking on the orange-black input wire on the siren produces this following configuration. Likewise, on the Z3 siren button controller, we can click A1, A2, A3, and so on to see the configuration that will take place once these input buttons are pushed on the actual physical hardware. Let's take a basic look at how actions are added to inputs and how actions are removed from inputs. We'll click the brown-white wire on the Z3 siren. Currently, there's nothing configured for this wire, but we can take actions from the actions column, drag and drop them onto the input, and now that action and that input have created a configuration. Likewise, we can take the action itself, drag it off and drop it back into its action column, and it will remove it from the input. This is the basics of how you configure any input and action to create a configuration. We are now going to take a look at the menu options on the top of the configuration column. Starting from the left is the New Default Configuration button. This button will load the default configuration that comes with the Matrix software. It is a good starting point to begin your own custom configurations. Next to the New Default Configuration is the Load Configuration from List of Recent Saved Configurations. When clicked, the list will be presented that contains the last 10 saved configurations in your system. It's just an easy way to not have to search through your hard drive to find configurations. The next button in the menu is Load Saved Configurations from Disk. This allows you to open up your hard drive and find the configurations where you've saved them. By default, the software saves them in a configuration folder listed under the root directory of where you installed the Matrix software. Of course, you can save the configurations wherever you would like on your hard drive. The next button over is the Save Configuration as a new file to disk. When you're creating a brand new configuration, you want to save it, simply click the button, find the directory where you'd like to save your configurations, name it, and save. At this point, once you've saved your configuration, the next button over will simply save it as you click it. For instance, on the B1 button, we're going to remove all of the configuration from it, and then we can simply click Save, which will save the current configuration you had just saved. The next button on the configuration menu is the Finish Working on the Current Configuration. This simply allows you to clear out all of the inputs that were selected and to clear the configuration column so that you can work on other things. The next button over, Clear the Current Configuration, actually is pretty helpful. Let's take slider 3 for instance. This is a pretty long configuration because we have latching, which we'll discuss in another video. Instead of having to drag and drop off all of these different things so that you can start clearing a configuration, you can simply click on Clear the Current Configuration. It'll ask you if you want to remove all of the actions for this particular input. Say yes, and you're now back to an empty input, and you can start over again by adding other things to it or moving on to configuring other inputs. The next button in the configuration menu is Prioritize the Configuration. We're not going to discuss how this works now. That's in a different video, and you can see that video by going to Help and How-To Videos. Now we'll move on to the View Entire Configuration button. When you click this, the system will generate a PDF. Once the PDF is generated, it will show you a concise view of the entire configuration, all of the inputs, and the actions that are associated with them. This is just a handy way to view the entire configuration, or to even print it out and give it to an officer so they can be trained on what the configuration is for their particular vehicle. The second to last button on the configuration menu is the Analyze this configuration device capacity requirements. It sounds complicated, but it's actually a great feature that allows you to see memory capacity and device space capacity utilized on all the connected devices based on the configuration you're currently working with. As you can see, all of our devices that are currently connected to the system have memory capacity and device capacity utilized. Green is okay, meaning you're okay to export this configuration to your devices. If you have a warning, it means that you're currently running out of space, but you can still export. And overcapacity means that the configuration is too large for the memory or drive capacity of a particular device. And lastly, one of the most important buttons on the configuration menu, Export Configuration to the devices. This is how you get your current configuration you're working with exported to all the devices connected to your matrix system. Once the Export to Devices button is clicked, the necessary files are generated for each device, written to their physical memory, and each is rebooted and ready to be used on the vehicle. And that's the basics of how to configure the matrix configuration software by assigning actions to inputs and exporting them to your physical devices. I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching.